Hi, I'm Claire. I am a senior partner at Proclinical Executive Search. Proclinical are one of the biggest global search firms in life sciences. I'm honoured to be joined here today by Angela Cunningham. Angela has 25 years of experience holding leadership roles in both the UK, the US, and in a variety of industries, including retail, education, technology, real estate, print, and digital media. Throughout her career, Angela has advocated for and amplified women at work and is driven to see more women in leadership roles. Through the power of mentorship, Angela believes that as senior leaders, we have a vital role to play in supporting women in the workforce. Currently working as Director of Partnerships for a global nonprofit organisation, teaching public speaking and leadership skills, Angela is a journalist and writer contributing to websites and magazines on the topics of women in leadership. Angela holds a BA Honours degree from Surrey University in the UK, a master's degree from Lancaster University in the UK, a postgraduate diploma in journalism from the University of Central Lancashire in England, and a diploma in women in leadership from Cornell. She also founded the STEAMY Collective and Female Mentorship International, both focused on bringing online communities of women together to share their career experiences and provide support through mentorship. Angela, thanks for joining me for International Women's Day. I know many women will be very much appreciative of you taking the time to share your insights and guidance.
Pleasure to be here, Claire. Thank you.
So, Angela, you mentor women through their careers and have said one of the biggest things women struggle with is to talk about their achievements. Tell us a bit about that.
That's right. Some women find it difficult to talk about their achievements and abilities because they feel like it's boasting, they're showing off or bragging. Some feel embarrassed and cringe if they're made to draw attention to the things that they've succeeded in. There's a study out there conducted by the National Bureau of Economic Research, and they've found that women in particular suffer from not knowing how to self-promote at work compared to, say, equally performing men. And that the cause could stem from as early as 6th grade. So they report that in the school classrooms, girls are being told to be good and be quiet, be nice, and don't interrupt the teacher. And I think that expectation that girls should follow the rules and not be disruptive are set quite early. And it's this that is carried through to adulthood for many women. The survey said it's no surprise then that years later in the workplace, then the same women struggle to speak up and to put themselves forward for that promotion or to push to take the lead on a lead project or even ask for a pay rise.
Thanks, Angela. It's interesting. Have you found that to be the case among some of the women you mentor?
Yes, I have. It stems even beyond being able to talk about achievements. It can be even reluctancy to express an opinion, to speak up, and even seeps into the types of leaders they are and the behaviors that they exhibit in the workplace. So some of my clients talk about feeling that they must choose between being liked on one hand, so agreeing to each other's or to others' opinions and not being too assertive in meetings and always seeking consensus. Should we take a vote, or that's just my opinion, I could be wrong. So choosing between that on the one hand, and then on the other hand, taking control of meetings and situations or leading the narrative and stating that direction as fact. So that feeling of being torn between, which hat to wear, that is known as the double bind dilemma. So again, another survey I can quote is by IBM. They surveyed and sponsored Catalyst to conduct a report. And that report was to examine if gender stereotypes can create problems for women leaders. And then they found that 3 predicaments put women in this double bind and can potentially undermine their leadership. So the report identified, firstly, extreme perceptions. So women are perceived as either too soft or too tough, but rarely as kind of just right. It's kind of like Goldilocks, bed's too hard, too soft. So rarely will it just get it just right and just in the middle. The second thing the survey found was this high competence threshold. So women leaders face higher standards and lower rewards than many men leaders. And thirdly, it's the competent but disliked factor. So women leaders are perceived as competent, so they do their job well, or are less competent but liked. And again, rarely both. So there's a perception by some, therefore, that women are these caretaker leaders, and they display typically, their words, not mine, typically female characteristics, such as like being supportive, encouraging lots of team building and collaborating through networking. Whereas men display more take charge behaviors. They identify with words such as delegating and problem solving, influencing others. So we need to move past these perceptions and biases of leadership behavior and be conscious of our own bias, because we all have them. So when we encounter female leaders at work, just set aside, your own bias. And I think if we start to do that, fewer women leaders would feel trapped by this so-called double bind dilemma.
Thanks for explaining those concepts, Angela. That's really helpful. What do you advise your clients to do when identifying their achievements?
So there's some quite practical things you can do. So firstly, for those that really struggle to talk about what they've achieved, I have them think about the impact their achievements have had on others. So how has their achievement helped someone else? For example, if they successfully landed this great job with great pay, I have them think about how that has impacted their family. So as a direct result of you getting that fantastic dream job, you were able to close the mortgage on a new house, move to a place you actually want to live in, and therefore secure your children in that great local school. Or another example could be, as a result of negotiating a larger budget at work, you were able to hire another person. Therefore, you're reducing the pressure and stress on your current team members. You're allowing them to focus on their roles and improve accountability, therefore leading to an increase in job satisfaction amongst your staff. So seeing the impact of how your achievements on others can help those that you care about can be a way for those women that really struggle to even admit and talk about their achievements and actually be able to speak up about them and actually own them. I think secondly, I'd also say is mind your language. Women have a tendency to downplay their roles in achievements, and we sometimes use cushioning languages such as I supported and I assisted. I would advise to think about action words. So I led, I managed, I drove, and using the right words, whether it's on a resume or in an interview, can make a huge difference. I think thirdly, think about telling a narrative when talking about your achievements rather than just thinking and putting them down in bullet lists. So in interviews, for example, if you're asked to tell someone about an achievement that you've recently accomplished, have some anecdotes ready. Take the interviewer on a journey so they understand what was involved in your achievement. For example, if I say as my achievement, I made sure my team delivered the product on time and to budget. Right, it's all great. It's all great stuff, but it's short and it doesn't really expand on how or why that was such a good achievement. So you'll take the same example and you reframe it. And you could say something like, this was the first time in 5 years since our company launched a new product of this scale. So there was a lot of expectation to succeed. So then again, not using cushioning language, you could say, I ensured that the developers and the designers had fully understood what our customer research had shown us, and that the new product exceeded the number of features that was expected in the market. I directed the support team to complete all internal business processes so they were ready for the launch and felt confident that they could support our customers from day one. I managed the cross-collaboration of the marketing team, the product team, so that all marketing campaigns are aligned with the correct release dates, et cetera, et cetera. So you're taking the interviewer on this journey with you, sharing the narrative and giving yourself the opportunity to talk about what exactly went into your achievement. I hope that helps.
Yeah, that's amazing. I can see that being so useful for women, not only applying for new jobs or in the interview process, but also, going for that promotion and being able to articulate. Just because you work for a company doesn't necessarily mean they know exactly what you've achieved. So being able to articulate that using that language is really great. So thanks for that.
Sure.
What is the imposter syndrome?
Okay. So many people have probably heard of that. So the imposter syndrome was a phrase that was coined, about 45 years ago now, by two clinical psychologists. It's still used widely today, and it describes a feeling that often grips high achievers generally, and that's the feeling of being found out, of being exposed as a fraud, to not really having the ability to internalize, again, achievements and successes. So someone with imposter syndrome might feel guilty about success and have a tendency to discount their achievements. They find themselves thinking, oh my goodness, why did I get this promotion, or why did I get this job? Why me? There's a brilliant speech out there on TED Talks by a lady called Valerie Young, and she's the co-founder of the Imposter Syndrome Institute. She refers to a guy she overheard once saying, oh, if I can get a PhD in astrophysics from Caltech, anybody can. So in this way, that syndrome reflects that inner doubt, that little voice that makes you doubt yourself, and can affect anyone, apparently even astrophysicists.
How interesting, especially that it affects high achievers. That's really quite surprising and interesting to hear. Is it a feeling that impacts women more than men, would you say?
So again, many studies throughout the world on this subject, and some researchers would argue that it's actually more to do with environment in the workplace rather than, say, gender. The two psychologists, Clownson and Emes, who named the imposter syndrome, their study was carried out in 1978, so quite some time ago. It was focused on high achieving women only. And that was at a time when women in leadership in general was considered unusual. So I think historically that gender connection may be because of the timing of their particular report. And I think as time has progressed, the term imposter syndrome, whilst it's still used today, does raise some arguments that what we're really talking about is self-doubt and inadequacy, which is a natural reaction and experienced by many people, regardless of whether male or female, and also regardless of really gender, race, nationality, religion, economic status, etc. Everything. It can all be triggered by really anyone who feels under pressure and who have folks who have really high expectations of themselves, I'd say.
So how do you overcome this feeling of ineptitude?
So the way to stop feeling like an imposter, which is what you do feel like when you have the imposter syndrome, is to stop thinking like an imposter. So it's to reframe how you think, and then the feelings will follow. It takes time and practice, and there could still be times where you have moments of self-doubt and feelings of being an imposter, but it won't take over your life. And you can learn how to reduce those feelings when you're in that situation. And again, if you read anything, I mentioned before, read anything by Valerie Young. She'll refer you to thinking your way through. I think some people come to me to be coached on preparing for an interview, and the way I do it, we work through a number of sessions on why they want the job, what appeals to them about the company, the relevance of their experience, qualifications. And we end the sessions, we conclude it all with a mock interview. And then after the interview, I always give constructive feedback. Now, those that do not suffer from imposter syndrome are so eager to get the feedback because they want to improve. They want to know what can they build upon, because they know there is room for improvement in everybody. But those that have the doubt and could be described as, having this imposter syndrome, they feel almost crushed sometimes. You've got to be really careful giving feedback because they see it as a shortcoming. They feel like they may fail the interview because they just aren't good enough. So I work with them to say, think about the feedback I'm giving differently. Think about your resume and your own career experience as a work in progress. It was never at an end. It's never perfect. We're always learning, so don't expect perfection. I'll give you an example when I felt imposter syndrome. So in my early 20s, quite some time ago, I worked as an inventory controller for an international publishing company. It's right in the heart of London, in central Covent Garden. And I remember going into my first meeting on my first day with my boss and walking into a room of these older, very elegantly dressed people who were, talking really posh accents about print runs and selling foreign rights and how many thousands of copies of the latest travel guide to Italy we were going to sell. And I felt so out of my depth. And, I was thinking to myself, what the heck am I doing in this room? I've got nothing to contribute. I don't want to make a fool of myself. If they ask me a question or my opinion on something, I'm not going to know what to say. So I kept my eyes down and I wanted to avoid all eye contact. So I think I began fiddling with my pencil or rustling through some papers. And the room went quiet for like half a second. I just peeped up. And as I looked up, I saw one man mouthing across the room to a colleague and pointing at me, like, who's that? Who's that? And the colleague was just like shrugging shoulders. I don't know. They were kind of mouthing this conversation. And I left that meeting 45 minutes later, having said nothing, having contributed nothing. And I was sure that I didn't deserve to be in that room, so much so I couldn't even say my name and introduce myself, even though I know people were like wondering, who is that? Now, some could say, well, that's your boss's fault. They should have introduced you. Okay, of course, that's another story. But the point was that, I just didn't feel that confidence. So years later, I look back now and I wish I could have told my younger self to reframe my thoughts, to not think that I was inadequate, and to understand, look, no one was expecting me to be an expert in my job on day one. And I wanted to say to myself, it's okay to ask for help and guidance. No one else in the room or in that meeting knew everything about everything. And so what I say now is how you view and frame competence, success, and failure all have a part to play in feeling like an imposter or not. So in conclusion, I would say begin to reframe how you think, and the feelings will for sure follow.
Thank you for sharing that story, Angela. It's really interesting that everything starts with the thought process, and then the words, and then the actions follow. Mm. As part of your work, you mentor other women leaders. Why do you think that's important?
Well, first of all, let's talk about what mentoring is. Traditionally, it's a one-to-one relationship between a mentor and a mentee, and it's focused on developing the growth of the mentee. The mentor would generally be someone who has more experience or expertise on a relevant topic that the mentee wants to improve on. The relationship is quite long-term, so say over a period of 6, maybe up to 12 months. And then a successful mentor-mentee relationship is really based on trust and confidence, I'd say mutual respect and sensitivity. And from a practical point of view, it's recommended to have a long-term plan based on the mentee's goals and then action points which are set by the mentor. So you can also then have regular check-ins and have this open and honest communication and feedback. And that usually, couple all of that together, usually leads to quite a successful match. Now, why have a mentor at all? So women who have strong mentors enjoy more promotions. They enjoy higher pay and they enjoy greater career satisfaction. And having a mentor can help you develop your skills, your confidence, your network, and ultimately helps you succeed with whatever that might look like for you. Okay, so some mentors are within your organization and tend to be senior to you. These relationships can be important because mentors can act as sponsors within your company. So that means that the mentee has someone on their side that maybe can look out in the company for opportunities for you to follow, or maybe it's to make an introduction to a senior leader, or even to suggest them for certain projects that would help elevate their career path. So really useful to have a mentor within your company. Now, some mentors can be from outside of the workplace, and that can bring a different kind of expertise and a different viewpoint on career growth. Perhaps mentors from the same industry, just a different company, or even a totally different industry, but is still able to be able to mentor on certain skills and things like, negotiating or growing a startup business. I think as senior leaders, we need to mentor upcoming female future leaders in the workforce to help build their confidence and guide them through the obstacles that we all have overcome. So in industries such as IT, engineering, the financial services industry, where there are far fewer leaders to have that positive female role model for other women, it's really important to be inspired and get support. Really, really vital to be able to grow in those kind of industries. Now, I've worked in, as you said earlier, in education and the nonprofit world, in publishing. There's been a really higher ratio, I'd say, of women to men in leadership roles where I've been, but I can count on one hand the number of female mentors I've had in a 30-year career span. So I now mentor women both in groups online and in one-to-one mentoring relationships. I'm a passionate advocate for the importance of good mentorship today for our upcoming leaders. Just to add this, though, by the way, men obviously can mentor women too, and vice versa. From speaking to folks and from my experience, though, I know that this can cause some mentors and mentees to pause before committing to a male-female mentoring relationship because they're afraid of the perception that colleagues or spouses would have. It is unfortunate on the one hand, because in some industries, there just aren't enough females in senior leader roles to be mentors for upcoming female leaders, and men who want to mentor and who would make great sponsors may hesitate before entering into a mentoring relationship with a female, generally more junior member of staff. So that is something that I think we're at a disadvantage of, and I'd love to be able to kind of move past those kind of biases.
Thanks, Angela. That's all super useful. And when you're looking at that relationship, what practical steps would a mentor-mentee relationship take?
So this could differ depending on if the mentor or mentee are in the same company or not. But I think generally speaking, seek to set the expectations of both sides up front. So what is the purpose of this specific relationship? What is the mentee looking to achieve? And be realistic. You aren't going to be an Olympic swimmer in the next 12 months if you don't know how to swim today, for example. Set realistic goals. I'd set expectations. So how often do you both want to meet? Is it in person or online or a mix of both? What is the preferred method of communication? Is it Zoom calls, phone calls, emails, or again, a mix? And how long will mentoring sessions last? What's the duration of the relationship in total? 6 months or 12 months? Are they each meetings like 1 hour sessions at a time? So figure all those things out. And then for sure, keep commitments on both sides. We all do get busy, but committing to that mentor-mentee relationship is important. If you're the mentee, make sure you come to meetings prepared. Make sure you've carried out any work that was expected of you or goals that were set by your mentor. If you're the mentor, say be patient, listen more than talk, don't direct, but instead offer guidance and encouragement. And overall, ask questions of the mentee, and that will promote that insight to help guide you as the mentor.
Thanks, Angela. And I suppose it doesn't take a lot of time either. I know of a Silicon Valley CEO who's really new in the industry and in leadership, and she would buy breakfast once a month for her mentor, who would, talk to her for an hour or so before jumping on his flight. And it was really natural and pleasant, and she was able to really utilize that advice. And so thanks for sharing that. And then what's one way that people could connect with you if they wanted to talk further about this?
I'd be happy to connect with anyone that wants to talk a little bit more, or want to exchange some information or some contact details. The best at the moment, the best email to reach me on, Claire, and maybe we could kind of put this at the end of the presentation, but it's Angela, Angela, Angela at thementoringplan.com. Angela at thementoringplan.com. It's a new community that I'm starting to build. So that would be the best place to connect with me right at this moment. Or LinkedIn. Look for me on LinkedIn too.
Okay, well, we'll definitely put the information up on this as well. So thank you so much, Angela. It's been an absolute pleasure. And I know many people will be grateful for your insights and the kindness and generosity that you've shared today with giving us your time.
Thank you so much. Thanks. It's an honor.